Welcome back to episode 4 of Midnight Movie Reviews. Sadly, this week we do not have a guest. However, we're still bringing you a great movie review. And this week we watch Paths of Glory by Stanley Kubrick. And I'm just going to let Adam take it away. So, Adam, do your thing.
All right. So, what's the general opinion from everyone? Just give us a no numbers, just general opinion.
So, as kind of a person who doesn't watch black and white film, I thought it was something that was very well done. Nothing crazy, nothing awful. I generally liked it. It was a really good movie. Nick, what do you think?
I thought it was an average movie, like nothing crazy about it, but there was nothing terrible that just made me like turn off the TV and just watch something else.
I would have to agree with that too. I thought it was fairly average. Of the black and white films I've watched, which is not too many, but there's nothing really to hate about it, but in my opinion, nothing really to love either. But what do you think, Adam?
This movie is pretty great in my opinion. Not the best ever. Definitely not Stanley Kubrick's best movie. But I think it's a hidden gem. It's not very well known. Definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, for none of you guys in the know, Stanley Kubrick, really, really great director. More stuff on him later in this episode, but I'm the one who picked out this movie for this week, and I know Stanley Kubrick, but I've never heard of this film, and I was scrolling through my phone, and I just saw it on the post, and I just saw this 1 minute scene of the colonel just walking through the trenches. I'm like, this is gonna be good. I didn't even have to watch that much of it. So right now,
why don't you give us a little summary?
Yeah, I'll give us our quick summary about this entire movie, and then we're gonna start asking some questions. The year is 1916. Both the Germans and the French are stuck in a grisly trench war where no one seems to be winning. And without regard to the well-being of the soldiers on the front lines, upper-ranked French military officers are beginning to offer incentives for outrageous feats. Colonel Dax is subsequently ordered by General Paul Moreau to launch an impossible attack on a heavily fortified key German position on Ant Hill. However, Colonel Dax is in no position to refuse this suicidal assignment. After the failure to take the Ant Hill, 3 of Colonel Dax's men are scapegoated, and he's forced to mount a defense against his own egotistical superiors and their hunger for glory. Take it away, Adam.
All right. So first, we're going to go over characters and acting. What do you guys think?
Let's see. I'm not really sure where to start on this, but character-wise, I don't know. I didn't see too many standout characters. The development, in my opinion, wasn't we didn't see a whole lot of a lot of character development. The characters weren't super recognizable. Could be because black and white, of course, and it's a very old movie. But yeah, I didn't really notice too much outstanding in the way of characters.
I'll disagree with that. I think, especially with Colonel Dax, he was a good character. I think he's really the only character with much change in this movie, since it kind of shifts between different characters. It focuses on some more at the beginning and some more at the end. But Colonel Dax was definitely a good character. I think there's just a lot of good character storytelling in this movie where you knew exactly what a character was in their first scene, and then they didn't really do much more with the character from there, but it was just a really striking, well done character from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I will give them that. The characters were consistent. You knew what you were going to get from them after a little bit of the movie. Yeah, I mean, they weren't bad characters. I'm used to seeing a little bit more change and development within each character in other movies I've watched, but and not the worst thing, just not a whole lot of change, as Adam said.
Nick, Misha?
Yeah, I kind of agreed with Luke's point there. Like, I didn't really see much in terms of development, and I think it might have really helped this movie.
Yeah, Nick, I mean, I'd have to disagree with you and Luke on that one. I'm more of like I agree that there wasn't much change, but I felt like that was good for the characters in a way because it's like people in like wartime, you're not gonna see someone go through a big triumph as a character and then maybe a downfall and then like a rise up again. I feel like people in that time were pretty consistent with who they were. You have these like soldiers who just want to get the job done. You have these people who are super power hungry. And I felt like giving each character something along those lines was good. But like again, like we didn't see someone go through a massive amount of change, but like Adam said, Colonel Dax, you did see him change a bit through the beginning and through the end, but it didn't wasn't something massive.
And I think it also would have been nice to see some like character like relationships with each other. Like it was kind of just this character does this character does this. I mean, they're sure they're.
Well, I mean, we did see relationships though. You had the was it a what's the father? It's priest, right? I don't know the correct term.
I mean,
you had the religious figure. The religious figure guide the three scapegoated people, and then those three scapegoats were like already kind of knew each other, and they're all like they had I'd say they had like a well established relationship, but again, it was nothing super deep though.
I didn't see any.
Another relationship I sort of saw was like towards the beginning of the movie when they went on the reconnaissance mission, and one of the people who went on that reconnaissance mission was charged with cowardice at the end of the movie.
Oh yeah.
There was a bit of a relationship there.
Oh yeah, because what happened was the guy who like threw the grenade and killed his own officer by accident, and then when he ran away, the only person who knew that he did that, he called him out on it, and then what happened was the guy who called him out on it was scapegoated. He was purposely picked because he knew. So I think the name is Roger. Let's spell like Roger, but with a T. He chose that guy to be scapegoated because he was the only one who knew that he did that. So.
Okay, I have a really good counter to what Luke said. I was watching an interview of the guy who created The Wire, the TV show. I forget his name, but he was talking about this movie. He was saying how the reason this is such an effective anti-war movie is because it doesn't really establish a sort of camaraderie between all of the soldiers. They're not like, oh, it's the boys gonna go kill the Germans. It's more of like, oh yeah, this is terrible. You don't want to be here. Trust me.
That's an interesting thought there. Yeah, I mean, I guess you don't they don't want the audience to think that like.
Well, yeah, war's good.
They're having all fun, and it's like yeah, we're gonna go beat up those Germans, and we're gonna have a good time. Like, I mean, it would maybe I was thinking it didn't have to be a positive relationship. It could have been like a rivalry between two guys or something, and I guess there was a little bit of that. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you had your rivalry with General Moreau and Colonel Dax. That's
yeah, you did. And I kind of liked that. I thought that was pretty good. That they put that in.
Yeah, you could really feel the tension between those two characters.
Yeah.
I honestly thought it would end in a fist fight at the end of the movie where they would just start throwing hands, but I like how they handled it where that didn't happen.
Between like the three of them, like when they were sat down to eat, yeah, I felt some big tension right there, and I thought it would break in like some big fashion, but it didn't, and a little bit of a letdown. But like, I mean, that's just how it is, I guess.
I don't think the ending was a letdown at all, actually.
No, I don't think the ending was a letdown.
We just mean like there wasn't like a fight between General.
Oh, yeah, I was ready for a big fight at that moment, but like
bar style fight, but no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fiction
Adam.
type thing.
Well, I think we've put our 2 cents into it. So Adam, let's move us on.
All right. So now dialogue, and I'll start here. So I think that the dialogue in this movie. It wasn't like amazing, but there were some really standout moments, like Colonel Dax's speech in court at the end where he's giving like his final summary. That was really good. I think the dialogue exchange between the three inmates and the priest was really good. But like, and with the general, that was really good. But overall, the dialogue, there wasn't like a lot of standout stuff.
I would agree with you on that one, Adam. I mean, there is like really famous quotes out of this movie, but just like we said before, it's not that well known of a movie. But like kind of things that they like shout out and like they're like this. Though there's some stuff you can pull out and there's some stuff that's rememberable. But like I remember like the first time the characters spoke to each other, I'm like, okay, it's not forced dialogue and it's not something super deep anyways, but it's well done. And there's nothing crazy about it, and there's nothing bad about it either. What do you think about it, Luke?
Of course, you're not gonna get that type of like Pulp Fiction dialogue in the war movie. It's just not the type of movie where you see outstanding dialogue. I think it did what it needed to do. It served its purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like for this type of movie, it's got normal war stuff. Like the way they interact, it's probably like true to what it would be like in that time, but I don't think I could like I'm not remembering any standout quote or anything, but I don't think that the dialogue like subtracted from the film at all.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, let's move on.
All right. On to effects, mostly practical effects in this movie. Well, all practical effects in this movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
There was a lot of gore in that one scene on the battlefield where they all charged up to the anthill, and it was a slaughter. But I think it was done well. Honestly, I feel like in black and white, it's a lot easier to pull off effects. It's just you don't have to do as much with color, and it'll usually look mostly realistic unless you're trying to do some sci-fi huge stuff. But yeah, I think the practical effects were great.
Yeah. I mean, like, because like kind of like what you said, Adam, like if you like do like a smoke bomb sort of thing, it'll look fake, but like since you don't have that like real big depth of color, that color adds to depth. Yeah, it really just makes those effects like look as if they should. And yeah. I mean, practical effects, I'm gonna go kind of into like the makeup. So if you remember in the beginning part of the film, where we first see like the guy who gets blown up by the grenade by his own officer, I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, that looks like pretty real. Like this guy's like pretty mangled. And like I remember this instance when in the charge for the anthill where like some body literally just got like blown up. I think that one was like something they tried to show because it looked a little in slow motion, or like what they could have done in slow motion in the late 50s. But yeah, I'd say overall it seemed pretty believable that they were being shot at by like mortars and artillery. I'd say it was pretty good. What do you guys think?
Of course, I don't know. I myself can't really bring myself to critique on like these visual effects of a movie from the 1950s because I really have no idea what kind of technology they had access to create these effects. But I mean, I thought it was pretty believable. It seemed fairly typical. I thought it did what it needed to do. Of course, not outstanding, but yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, did it seem like low budget to you in any way? I mean, like,
no,
I put this in front of you, and I'm like, and I was like, what do you think of this? Like, without giving you any context, like, what would you think?
I mean, it's definitely not low budget. I think they put some pretty good work into it.
I for like the 50s, this is like pretty average, to be honest. Like, there's nothing outstanding. Like, a couple parts of it seemed like not really real. Like, sometimes when you'd see like the sky from the trenches, it didn't seem like that like high quality.
It's probably a miniature. They probably like when they're looking through like the telescopes at the anthill, like obviously that's a miniature. And there's like they obviously use matte paintings or paintings for their backgrounds. Like that's like kind of given. But I think they did a good job though. Sorry,
I know
just
we really have a.
They worked well with it, but like I think it could have been a bit better than it was.
I know we don't have a section for this, but honestly, I think for the 50s, set design in this movie was pretty phenomenal. Like
that was pretty believable for being in a trench. Like
there was never really a shot that was like, oh, that's obviously fake. And they had like a whole battlefield. They had the I don't know what you'd call it, but it was like the building where the generals and everyone of like higher rank was at.
I think that's like the French palace. I was like gonna look it up if that's like like the one where all the French monarchs got like killed and whatever because the peasants were mad and stuff. But like I was like when they showed the battlefield sequence, I was like, wow, this just like keeps going on and on. I'm like, how much of this did they like build? Like they just like went out to like this massive field and they just like built an entire like war scene. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the set design was pretty great actually. It wasn't super complex. They just, you had the building of the higher ups, and then you had battlefield. That's basically all you had, and but I think it was established very well. It was very strong set design actually, I'd say.
Yeah, the trenches were so expansive. Like it was a huge set. I mean,
definitely.
Assuming they didn't like reuse parts.
I could tell that they put like a lot of work into that, and I thought that was pretty cool.
All right, on to the next question. What do you guys think of the pacing of this movie?
People are more inclined to believe that older movies are slow, but I didn't feel that. I mean, maybe I was just the way I was watching, but I honestly didn't think this movie was slow in any sense, and it wasn't fast in any sense. I think it was the speed it needed to be to get the point across of what was going on in the story. So like, the battle sequence was at the beginning, and I didn't really look into this movie that much, so I thought it would just be a war movie, and I was like, I totally didn't know that this movie was going to be more about like being court-martialed in that sequence. So yeah, I felt like part 1 is the war, part 2 is suffering through the court-martial, and then part 3 is being killed in the aftermath. Like that's pretty much the whole movie, and everything was and that movie was like pretty evenly spaced, and it was like good half an hour for everything for each of those 3 parts.
Yeah, I was thinking that like the whole movie would be them trying to like take over the anthill, but then they failed, and I was like, whoa, what's gonna happen now? And then the rest of the movie was like all court stuff and like just them dealing with like, oh, we're gonna die, and then that final sequence, that was just all so good and so well.
Like I was pretty on my edge for that entire thing. Like honestly, I was like, no way they're gonna kill them. They're gonna find a way out of it. But then they do, and I'm like, oh. Yeah. What did you think?
I thought I was really more expecting kind of like what you said, Misha, with like having it be more geared towards a war movie. So it kind of surprised me, kind of like you said, Adam, that like after the war, it was just, oh, it's doing this court thing. And it put an interesting twist to it. But in terms of pacing, I thought it wasn't slow, it wasn't fast. I thought it worked well.
I mean, even though the beginning had like the battle scene and everything, but I felt like it was a little bit slow. However, I like the twist that they put on it in the second and third part, like the trial and the aftermath of the trial. And I mean, I don't know. I might have liked to see. It would have been interesting to see kind of an escape scene with the 3 guys who had been accused. But of course, I think that would have taken away the anti-war aspect of the movie if they had escaped and it had been a happy ending and they like returned to their families and stuff. So I think it was good that they didn't have that escape scene.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because I was like, part of me wants them to like, get out and like do this and like what you said and like, have it be a fun ending. But then I realized I'm like, yeah, like you can pretty tell that this movie like is like, we're not good. B, don't do it, please. Like it's costing people lives. But then again, like these people are fighting and then they're losing their lives to their own people because they're just all, power hungry and stuff. So it's just, this movie is just like really like it really opens your eyes to like the darkness of like war. But
Yeah, and of course,
that's aside from the case.
and Escape would have been suspenseful, and I think it would have been, in a way, good for the movie, but in another way, it would have taken away, again, that anti-war aspect, if there was all a happy ending. So I think I think this was pretty good in terms of pacing as well as what the plot ended up including.
Yeah, they did kind of deal with that though in that one scene where they're like, "Hey, what if we did escape?" And they kind of like considered it, but there really was no way out because there was just like iron bars over the windows and like like a bunch of guards outside. So like they couldn't have really done that realistically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously the
They went full Indiana Jones mode.
Yeah.
But
all right, so on to plot structure. I think it was structured well. This is basically mostly what we already said.
Yeah, so it was
like
just
the 3 parts.
So part 1, again, just to reiterate, is going to be our battle scene. Learning the men on the field. Then our part 2 is going to be the trial, and part 3 is going to be the aftermath of the trial and the execution. Or you could put you'd put the execution in the third part. Right. And then again, it was pretty evenly spaced, so I thought it was pretty good. Nothing too crazy, nothing. It was pretty easy to follow, and I really liked it.
Yeah, and I have a thought to add. I didn't really know where to put this, so I guess I'll say it here. But I really loved this scene where they were walking up to like the firing squad. I just thought that they walked a long way, and there was like a lot of time for them to like talk with the priest. And it really like brought out their character, how the one guy was crying and like, begging for mercy, and then the other guy was kind of just sitting there, walking up silently. And obviously the third guy was unconscious, but that was just a really well-made scene. And like the cinematography was great. You got just a straight shot like following them, and then there's the soldiers on either side. And it was just a really long shot, and it really worked well.
Yeah, I was also gonna say something about that scene, but something a little different. So we had the guy who was in a stretcher. I don't exactly remember his name, but
it's like Arnold.
Yeah, so he was in a stretcher and he was being carried to his execution, and that I think really highlighted the brutality of this whole thing. Like he's pretty much dead, and he's being carried to be just like to get like many bullets put into his body, and just
Luke, I kind of disagree with you on him specifically.
It's just crazy. I don't know. I thought that was good that they included that, because it kind of just highlighted the whole brutality of the situation.
I don't agree with you on I don't think him being pulled out on a stretcher and then being executed shows the brutality. I think that's more of shows of like how someone really is just super power hungry and they just want to cover their tracks about what they did. So
they're super corrupt.
Yeah, it doesn't really show the brutality; it shows the corruptions. And anyways, the prisoner, the other scapegoat dudes, Paris, I think that's one of the name of the guys. He's the one who punched him and like put him in that condition.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So that really would make sense.
Mm-hmm. Nick, what do you got to say on this?
Yeah, kind of talking about like the little corruption part you were talking about. Obviously, the big general guy, he turns out to be the big antagonist kind of in the story, but pretty much all the other high-ranking French guys are just going along with him just because he's a general and he has power. But I think something that would have been like good to add it to the plot would be something going on with the colonel and the general, like some sort of fight, or we would actually get to see the inquiry they were mentioning towards the end of the movie. I think that like they added 20 more minutes to that movie, talk about that, see how that gets resolved. I think that might have added like a bit more depth to this plot, and I think this movie could have benefited from that.
But yeah, I was actually honestly hoping to see that. I was like, well, I want to see this guy get punished for what he did, but I guess
Like there was all this tension building up, and I don't think they really like broke it. Like it would have been great to see a fight. I agree with you, Nick. Yeah, what do you think about this, Adam?
Sure.
I would want to see the inquiry, but I think that it would like they kind of hinted at the fact, mostly the general hinted that the inquiry would kind of just like fizzle out and nothing would really come of it because he's so high in power and like no one would really take it seriously and it kind of just be like a big cover up, and it really adds to the whole corruption theme and how it's like, oh yeah, you can't really make a change. He's just gonna wipe it all away because he's the one in power.
And it's crazy because like everyone, the colonel was the only one. Like he was the only one who was doing essentially the right thing. Everyone else was just corrupted and under the influence of the higher ups, and no one would listen to him. It was just kind of it was kind of eye opening in that aspect. Like wow, there was really a lot of corruption going on at that time. But yeah.
I mean, that kind of plays into like theme and stuff. So, I mean, we're gonna talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll definitely address that.
Yeah.
Or later. So on to the next question, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a small detail I wanted to add.
Mhm.
I thought it was funny how in this whole movie, since it does take place in France and they're all French, how
They're all talking with
like,
English accents.
Yeah. I
think that's a little blunder on Stanley Kubrick's part. So everyone cancel Stanley Kubrick. He absolutely sucks. Okay, next question.
Obviously. All right, on to cinematography. This is gonna be a big one for this movie.
Ooh, I have so much to talk on this one.
Right?
So for cinematography, I mean, again, literally every movie we've watched so far has been shot on film, and like this one too, it's shot on film. And I feel like something they did was to kind of put more emphasis on the people. They did a technique of film where they kind of made it so the sky is very just blown out and it's really nothing there, so it kind of makes you focus on what's at the ground. And I'm not really sure if that's always black and white, but like I don't recall seeing any clouds of sorts, so the sky was pretty clear most of the time, so it made you focus on the people. Camera work in this movie was really good, especially during the battle sequence. It had a lot of dolly shots and following shots, probably on some sort of camera rig, like on like a track of sorts, and it looked really good. It like felt like you were there with them. Walking through the trenches, I felt like I was like actually there. It felt really real to me, like on the battlefield. But otherwise, during the sequences where they're in the buildings and such, it didn't feel like real or not real. It just felt like a movie.
Yeah, I really go ahead, Adam.
I loved how there was like big establishing shots for each room where it was like really like pulled back and you could see everything. Because in my opinion, when you take a look at cinematography in older movies like 50s and earlier, it's usually just like bland, straight on shots and they don't really try that much. I feel like cinematography really evolved in the next couple of decades, but for this movie, I think there was some really good stuff, especially in the trenches. Stanley Kubrick does the whole thing where he like sort of like at the same elevation, just like follows around throughout the trenches, goes on like that sort of path. He does that in basically all
Adam, like sorry to interrupt, but I just love that. I love that like extended like one like almost 2 minute like long scene of just walking through the trenches like completely unbroken. Well, it was broken by flipping back and forth between the colonel, but it was still just one continuous sequence of just walking through the trench, and I just love that. Okay, sorry,
I love
continue.
I love that like first person like POV type style. Like it's like you're there, like Misha, you said that. Like you're kind of almost there in that in walking through the trenches with explosions going up and soldiers all around you. It really brings a new level of intensity and reality to the show, and I really like that.
Yeah, like movies, kind of like what you said, Adam. Like it was really well put together. Like I'd say if it got shot even 20 years later, they might have made like a small improvement, but it's much better than like other 50s movies that were shot during that time. And I think like what Luke said, it really added to the film.
Yeah, I think that the shots in the trenches versus the shots in like the building, there was a lot of contrast there. How like the shots in the building were a lot more open and pulled back, where the shots in the trenches were a lot closer, and it really like brought a feeling of like I don't know how to describe it, but like
Well,
it was,
I think I know what you're saying. Like, you know, like the upper people, they're super free. They're free to do whatever they want to do. They can walk around. They have all this space. But all these soldiers, the people who are doing the real dirty work, they're all constricted. They don't have room to breathe. They're shell shocked. They're sleep deprived. They're hungry, and they're just dying. And it's just awful for them. And it's trying to give you that feeling.
Yeah, I think Kubrick wants you to kind of feel how soldiers felt in that situation, like Misha, you said. Like, instead of feeling like you're one of the higher ups, you feel like you're one of the soldiers doing all the dirty work and stuff. So I think that's really added to the movie. All the camera angles, like walking through the trench and stuff, and how it zoomed out in the palace. I think it was all done pretty well.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, on to symbolism and themes. I didn't really see a lot of that here. I know there was one big theme that was corruption. Mostly the general, how he was really making some bad decisions, and then like you never really saw a lot of big consequences for him in that regard. Like the entire court was basically they just agreed with him, and that whole scene surprised me. I thought like, wow. The colonel is making like such a good argument. Like, how could you not be on his side? And then, they all vote, or I don't know if vote's the right word, but they all, and then they get executed.
I mean,
So-
there's a bit of like humility in here from Colonel Dax and stuff.
Yeah.
He's trying to like help his soldiers, because he doesn't want them to be falsely accused for something that just wasn't gonna work in the first place. And he's just trying to like plead his case, and it's just like no one believes him. Well, they believe him, but they just wanna cover that they put someone on an impossible mission, and their soldiers didn't want to do it because they knew they're just gonna die anyways. So
Yeah,
I
like,
get
no
a lot
matter-
of humility from Colonel Dax.
No matter how much good evidence Dax put forth, I don't think the ruling was going to change. Like, I mean, there was literal evidence that the guy was knocked out cold in the trench, and I mean, they just turned a blind eye to it. And I think that really highlights the amount of corruption that was going on in that scene.
Yeah, and how like they kind of wanted to, not necessarily rule, but like they wanted to just, I don't know, they wanted to command them in fear. They're like, oh yeah, killing these 3 men, that's really going to teach them a lesson. This is just really corrupt and really just evil.
Yeah, kind of like what Misha said earlier on humility. Like, I liked how Colonel Dax, he was like, oh, if the inquiry happens, like, the colonel could get a promotion to like be the general, and he was like, oh no, I don't think I could do that. Like, it's what I've been wanting to happen, but like he doesn't want it that way. He wants to like earn it, not just like some bad general just stepping down. I thought that was like a smaller theme. Obviously, corruption was the main idea, but it had a couple of smaller themes that people might pick up on.
Yeah, like he thought that Colonel Dax was like he only wanted to expose the general so that he could become general, and not because he actually cared about those 3 men and wanted them to live. He's like, really? You actually wanted them to live? Like, how could you do that? Why would you do that? It just showed Colonel Dax's character a lot. That was a really good scene.
Yeah, and it also like showed that like they're just people who don't care about like the people who are doing the hard work, like we were saying before. All they care about is just their rank, their position, and if they win the war or not. They don't really care about the morale or what's the word? The moral. No, what's the word I'm looking for? The how they're feeling.
Humanity.
Oh,
The morale of the soldiers. Like, they didn't care about the morale. They were just like, well, they signed up for the job, so they have to do it. And it's like,
Yeah,
when you
like-
think about it, you need if you're gonna make him do this crazy plan, it better be something that's like well done and that they're most likely gonna win. I'm not gonna like send you into like a tank of sharks and be like, okay, live. You know, it's just not.
Yeah,
it's
I
something
mean,
that was impossible.
Colonel was really the only one with like, who was interested in the morale of the soldiers. Everyone else kind of just treated them as like,
Something
no,
expendable.
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, it's fine if we lose like over half of our troops. Like,
Yeah, it
that-
was like when he was like saying like we're gonna lose 25 here, 65 here, but then you'll have enough to hold it maybe. And I'm just like, really? These are just like
Yeah,
little
it's
like
just
plastic
insane.
toy soldiers to you. Just throw them away. It's just really awful.
Yeah, literally just plastic toy soldiers. It's really, really eye-opening to me.
Yeah, it's
insane.
crazy like, how much different like war is and like how casualties are thought of today versus something that happened in like World War II. Like it's just crazy to think about it like that.
Nick, to disagree with you real quick, I feel like I don't think World War II is the best comparison to draw. I feel more of like nowadays combat is like the better thing because like we like have to like go through a lot of planning before some sort of attack on anything happens. Just saying.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. If no one else has anything to say, Adam, let's get a move on.
All right. Now let's just get a general opinion of Stanley Kubrick from everyone. Have you guys seen any of his movies? What do you think of him?
So the most recent Kubrick film I've watched other than this was The Shining, and that's something I really enjoyed a lot. Definitely different from this movie. But yeah, it was really good. I've also seen 2001: A Space Odyssey. I really want to watch Eyes Wide Shut and a Clockwork Orange, but I just hear A Clockwork Orange is just really messed up. So something I want to watch, but you know.
Yeah, it's very messed up.
But I really wanna. I really like Stanley Kubrick. He is one of the best.
But have you seen Lolita?
No, I have not.
Oh boy. Movie about grown adult fucking a child.
Oof.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, when was this here? I'm looking up right now, 1962. Probably something that was more like not like something seen as like the world's worst thing, you know what I mean? Because like
Based on a book, but yeah.
yeah, it's just like culture back then was just so different from what it is now. Like obviously like rape is an awful thing, but like back then it was seen differently as it's seen now.
Yeah, this is the first Kubrick movie I've seen. I know you guys talk about like all these directors. It's kind of been like, except for Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's been the first movie I've seen from each of these directors. So I didn't really know what to expect going into the movie, but I thought he put it together. Like if it's not one of his best movies, like kind of what you said, or like not as well known. I don't know if this is like a true representation of his style, but like I can sort of see something, like something unique in his style that like might make him, like what you said, Misha, like one of the good producers. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean like definitely I'd say he's like top 10 best directors in the like of all time.
Yeah, I've never seen any of his other movies. I'm in the same boat as you, Nick. But it seems as if, judging from his other movies, what you guys said, that he directs a wide range of movies, and I don't think like you don't see that too often. Like, I mean, I guess you do, but I don't know. It's odd to think that a guy who directs a anti-war movie would direct like a movie such as The Shining. So I mean, I don't know. I think that really shows a lot of skill on his part. So I'm sure he's a very well accomplished filmmaker.
Yeah, so I've seen Space Odyssey, The Shining, A Clockwork Orange, Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket, I've seen that one too, and that one's just
Yeah,
funny.
I like him a lot as a director, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me here, but I don't necessarily feel that other than cinematography, which is he's very unique in that regard. I don't really feel that he has a style. I think he more experiments in a lot of different things.
Yeah, that's true because most of his movies are pretty different when you compare them.
Yeah, like yeah, he definitely dabbles, and it's a very interesting to see his sort of his all of his movies, how he does a lot of different things. And I think that honestly, if I mean, I couldn't really see myself as a director, but if I did, I'd probably do much like what he did, being like a lot of different things. It's interesting to see such a broad range of movies. All right, so moving on, we didn't really touch on this earlier, but this movie is in black and white in a time where there were color movies, common color movies. What do you guys think was why do you think that was, guys? Why did he choose?
First of all, I think they did it because French uniforms were blue in World War One, so they would be a real eyesore to look at, honestly. I feel like it was just a stylistic choice too, and also like a better, like it helped you more focus on not the visuals per se, but more help you focus on the story and how the visuals aided it. If you kind of follow my line of reasoning, like I didn't watch that movie to see things go boom and people go bleh. I watched it because like, oh, this aids the story. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like nowadays there's a lot of movies that like one that comes to mind, The Lighthouse. That one's like stylistic because it's like they were trying to emulate a certain thing. And this one, because it's in the 50s, I don't think they were trying to emulate they weren't trying to emulate old style film because it was old style film back then. I feel like it was just used to advance the plot, and you wouldn't have to focus on everything around. You just were focusing on the story.
Yeah, I don't know how long like color movies were around before then, but like I'd assume that they were kind of in their early stages of development, so it's probably like lower quality than you'd see in like a 80s movie or something like that. But I thought the color, like the lack of color, I guess.
About 30 years, Nick. That's how long since The Wizard of Oz, which was the first movie that used color.
Oh.
Wizard of
Wait,
Oz
when was the Wizard of Oz?
1939.
1939. Or actually 20 years, sorry.
20 years, okay.
Yeah, I mean it was still fairly new, but it was still common. Like I just read, color film started to be pretty common in commercials in early 1950s, and then common in films in the 1940s. But I mean, like again, it's still like nowadays it's still a stylistic choice. Like in my opinion, black and white is better for storytelling purposes. And then if you're trying to paint a picture like in Avengers and stuff like that, you need color.
Yeah,
Stuff
like
where there's intense stuff going on, it would be like I can't imagine an action movie without color.
Oh,
yeah, like something like Star Wars, Avengers, or like Blade Runner, like we just watched. Like stuff like that. You need color for, but this I don't think it was really needed. I think black and white told the story just fine, and I mean probably even better than it would have in color, because I think, as you guys have said multiple times, it kind of highlights the story rather than the visual effects, because this wasn't a movie with a lot of visual effects. That wasn't the purpose of the movie. So I think it was fine that they had black and white, and I think it was even beneficial for them to have black and white film.
Yeah, because it kind of distract from like what the story that Kubrick was kind of trying to tell.
Yeah, like you don't want to focus on like, oh, look at that big yellow bomb explosion. Like,
also it's like I mean it's also because it was World War One. Obviously, they didn't have color back then in their like it wasn't common at all to have color film back then. It was very, very, very rare, and so I guess he was trying to show, to also keep with the times, but
like,
again, Super stylistic choice. Super stylistic choice.
Yeah, I think it was a good choice.
Good choice
Yeah, I
for
think
sure.
I think it aids to like the blandness of war and like how there wasn't any like grand, colorful explosions. It really, it just adds to the storytelling, like Misha said.
Okay.
All right. So next question: why do you think that in this entire movie the enemy was never shown? There were no Germans on the other side, shooting from the anthill.
It's not what the movie's about. It's not about we're gonna beat the Germans. We're fighting against the Germans. I mean, the only time we really did see Germans was like dead bodies, but it's nothing like for you to pick out. I feel like again we're just trying to look at the perspective from one side and just how awful war is in general. Obviously they could have conveyed that notion better maybe if they showed like the other side and all how they felt, but then again that would have probably taken away from the story. So no Germans because it would probably take away from the story.
Yeah, I think it was because it was more about the conflict between the higher ranked officers and the lower ranked soldiers within the French army rather than the Germans versus the French.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it was good not to have a super, like, if the German side was added in, it might have made the plot a little bit too complex with too many characters, and you don't really want to have that. You want the audience to focus on the main moral of the story.
Because if this was like a full-on war movie, obviously they'd put some Germans in, but that wasn't the focus. It's not a full-on war movie.
It's an anti-war movie, yeah.
Got an aspect of it, but then it's also got kind of the inside battle between, like what you said, the higher up people, and then the actual people fighting in it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now, this isn't a question. It's just more of a fun fact I want to introduce. Feel free to react to this if you want, though. This movie, though it wasn't a French film, was banned in France for 18 years after its release. I wonder why.
Oh yeah,
They shot pretty hard on France, but I mean like this story could have literally been told about anything. They could have made it about the Germans, they could have made it about the Americans, they could have made it about the Russians. It didn't matter. I'm pretty sure Kubrick just happened to fall upon France because this was loosely based on a story of World War I that did happen in France, so that's probably why it's about France. And obviously it's banned in France because they did France pretty bad in this movie.
Yeah, it's understandable why it was banned. It makes sense that it was banned in France.
Yeah. All right, so final question. Why do you think that pretty much no soundtrack or like music was used in this movie?
I think it was most likely due, just like what we've been saying for this entire time, how this movie is not about like being super patriotic and like loving war and fighting for your country. It's big anti-war, and in my opinion, the soundtrack of this movie is literally the bombs falling and exploding. That's really what stuck with me, that like audio wise, and that really just made me like, that was like, there's so much explosions. Like I feel awful for like how much shell shock these guys are getting. It's just like, wow.
Yeah, it's really just background noise. There's nothing really needed.
More immersive.
You just didn't really need it in this film.
Yeah, I don't think you would have needed it. I mean, I think it would have been kind of nice though, just like a little bit of some like I don't know, maybe some like
orchestra,
like more like grave music, like slow, sad music in some moments that could have really kind of reinforced that feeling. But I mean, I think I would have liked a little bit of music, but it wasn't necessarily needed. It just would have been a little bit nice in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I agree with Luke, but I think they should have used it like very sparsely, like only in scenes that would have been really powerful.
Yeah. I think they could have used some like, as I was saying, like super like grave, serious, somber music, and like in certain instances to really bring those instances out with the music. Yeah.
All right. So on to our final rating. We're doing numbers here. Who'd like to go first?
I would love to go first.
All right.
For for being a Kubrick film, that obviously will just make it go higher, in my opinion. I know I
Yeah.
shouldn't do that, but again, if you didn't tell me this was a Stanley Kubrick film, which I probably wouldn't have picked up on anyways, if you never told me, I would still give this movie a solid 8 out of 10. It was nothing crazy, nothing horrible. It was a really good movie, in fact, but again, nothing mind blowing. But it just told a really interesting story. It there was a lot of twists, where they just get shot. There's okay, we're just gonna execute them, and it's wow. I really liked it. 8 out of 10. What do you think, Nick?
Interesting. I couldn't give this more than a 6. It wasn't a particularly complex plot. I know it didn't need to be. It's got its set stuff, but it kind of left you on a cliffhanger at the end. The characters weren't amazing. The cinematography was fine. I mean, it was good for the time, but that was kind of the only thing going for it in my mind. So I couldn't give it more than a 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a 6.5 though. It was fairly average, a little bit above average, just because I really like the twist that they put on it in the second half of the movie. Over the first half, I found a little bit dull. I don't know. That might be a bit of a hot take, but yeah, I thought it would have been nice again to have music, or to have a little bit more character change and development, and relationships between the more prominent characters. I think that would have meant more deep relationships. I think that would have added some meaning to the movie. But I think it was on the good side. I think it was a very eye-opening movie.
I'm gonna give it a 7.5, which 7.5 for me is still a great rating. I really like this movie, really enjoyable. Not Kubrick's best, but still a great movie. I really liked the court stuff, just that speech at the end. For me, there's a lot of parallels to Kill a Mockingbird, which I actually don't like To Kill a Mockingbird. I think the message is, it's a good message, but it's conveyed horribly. And I feel this is an entirely different message. It's kind of drawing from, it's conveyed in the same way, except they do it right. I don't really know how to explain it more than that, especially in a short time period. Maybe if you gave me 10 minutes, I could explain it, but that's all I'm going to say. Yeah, 7.5.
Okay, well, if you didn't pick up on it, guys, this week we watched Paths of Glory by Stanley Kubrick. Thank you so much for watching episode 4 of Midnight Movie Reviews, and you're going to catch us next time at next week watching Interstellar by Christopher Nolan. I'm going to say goodnight, and we're all going to do the same. Good night.
Adios.
Night.
Adios.
Hasta